University Frankfurt, and today I'm going to present joint work with Fenya Plate-Gunesh, Sascha Barkmann, and Markus Bader on topicality and inverse negative scope in German. So first of all, let me introduce you to the phenomenon on inverse negative scope in German. So in the German middle field, which is the part of the clause between the finite verb or complementizer and the sentence final verbal elements, an indefinite NP headed by ein can be followed by the clausal negation nicht. This is illustrated in example 1, where the indefinite ein Boot, a boat, precedes the clausal negation nicht, not. This combination can lead to different relative scope patterns between the indefinite and the clausal negation. So what we observed is that we can replace the combination ein Boot nicht, a boat not, by kein Boot, no boat, without a change in meaning. So intuitively, the sentence 1a can have the same reading as the sentence 1b, where we negate the existential quantifier. And kein is the contracted form of the negation nicht and the quantifier ein. This is interesting because it suggests that the negation can have inverse scope over the indefinite in 1a. This contradicts the widely held assumption that the scope of negation is strictly linear in German. Let us compare the inverse negative scope reading to the linear scope reading of one. So here we have our example again. Leider steht uns ein Boot nicht zur Verfügung. In the inverse negative scope reading, the indefinite scope's under negation, which means it takes narrow scope with respect to the negation. This is illustrated in the logical form in 2, where the negation precedes the existential quantifier. This yields the reading that it is not the case that there exists a boat that is available to us. In the linear scope reading, the indefinite scopes over the negation, which means it takes wide scope with respect to negation. Here you can see in 3 that the existential quantifier precedes the negation. And this gives us the reading that there exists a boat that is not available. And this raises the question of which factors determine whether an indefinite takes wide scope or narrow scope. And in the literature, many factors have been proposed, which I have summarized in this table. From a semantics point of view, it is often assumed that specific and generic indefinites take wide scope, whereas unspecific indefinites take narrow scope. From a pragmatics point of view, it is assumed that topics take wide scope, whereas focused indefinites take narrow scope. With respect to intonation, it is assumed that emphatic indefinites take wide scope and slim indefinites take narrow scope. Emphatic means that there is an accent-only determiner. We don't have with slim indefinite. So according to this table, narrow scopes cannot be topical. However, some of the narrow scope indefinites in our corpus data seem to be topics. I'm going to illustrate this in detail with the following corpus example. So since we are talking about information structure, it is very important to include the context, which I have added here. I'm very quickly going to read it out to you. According to a newspaper report, the federal government plans to purchase additional aircraft for the air fleet following a new plane malfunction. Due to a crack in the cockpit window, President Frank-Walter Steinmeier nearly missed his speech on the anniversary of the Constitution last Wednesday, reports the newspaper Bild am Sonntag. In response, the Ministry of Defense now intends to order new aircraft for the second time in a short period. This is about the fact that the government's air fleet doesn't have enough functioning airplanes. Now comes the actual sentence. As the Bild am Sonntag further reports, the replacement plane was not available because 7 out of the altogether 9 aircrafts in the air fleet were in the workshop and Chancellor Angela Merkel was using a further plane. So in this example, the indefinite a replacement plane follows the clausal negation nicht. First, I'm going to show you that we have an inverse negative scope reading here. This can be shown by the fact that we can replace the combination a replacement plane not by no replacement plane without a change in meaning. It's also very obvious from the context that the inverse negative scope reading is the only plausible reading here. Because out of the 9 airplanes, 7 were in the workshop, 1 was broken, and 1 was being used. So none of these airplanes were available. Next, I'm going to show you that the indefinite is a topic. It is generally very difficult to define what a topic is because there are several different definitions, but there are certain properties that are shared by topics. First property is that topics are discourse linked. This is also the case for our indefinite replacement plane because it stands in a posit relation to the air fleet mentioned in the previous context. Next property of topics is that they can be left dislocated. This is also possible with our indefinite in 7a. So here we have fronted the indefinite replacement plane to the beginning of the sentence, and we use a resumptive pronoun to refer back to it. Interestingly, this is not possible with keine Ersatzmaschine, no replacement plane, shown in 7b. Another test for topicality in German is Frey's designated topic position in the German middle field. So according to Frey, only topics can occur before a sentential adverb in the middle field. We tested this in A. And here you can see that the indefinite replacement plane can occur in front of the sentence adverbial, unfortunately. Again, this is not possible with no replacement plane. So the indefinite can occur in the topic position, but no replacement plane, keine Ersatzmaschine, cannot occur in this position. So according to these tests of topicality, the indefinite in ein and nicht can be a topic. Ein and per confas cannot be a topic. And this raises the more general question of topicality, of whether topicality motivates inverse scope of negation in German. And to investigate this question, we are going to focus on a more narrow question in this talk, namely, are inverse negative scope sentences more acceptable when the indefinite appears in a designated topic position? And to investigate this question, we conducted an acceptability judgment experiment, and we tested the following hypothesis. Indefinite in einer nicht sentences with an inverse negative scope reading is a topic. Based on the corpus example that I've just discussed, we have the following predictions. First, we predict that einer nicht sentences in which the indefinite NP directly precedes a sentential adverb, which is the topic position, are predicted to receive higher acceptability ratings than those in which the indefinite NP follows the sentential adverb, which is the non-topic position. Second, kein N sentences in which kein N directly precedes the sentential adverb will receive lower acceptability ratings than those in which kein N follows the sentential. And this, by the way, has already been shown by Störzer and Stolte. With respect to the design of our experiment, 49 native speakers of German participated in the study. They were all students at Goethe University Frankfurt. We tested 24 experimental items and 48 filler items. And these items were rated on a 7-point Likert scale. The design is a 2x2 factorial within subject design. First, we manipulated form of negation, which could be either eine nicht, which corresponds to inverse scope, or kein N, which corresponds to linear scope. Second factor we manipulated was word order. So the NP can either precede the adverbial, which is the topic position, or follow the adverbial, which is the non-topic position. This yielded 4 conditions, which I'm going to illustrate with an example item now. So each example item started with 2 context sentences. We wrote the context in such a way that the inverse negative scope reading is the more plausible reading. Here's an example. The soccer player had suffered a serious injury during training. This led to long-term difficulties for the team. Then the target sentences started with a main clause so that the indefinite occurs in the middle field. An example would be, it turned out that. Now come the 4 conditions. In the first condition, we have the form of negation eine nicht, which precedes the adverbial. So here, a suitable substitute player precedes unfortunately. In the second condition, we have again eine nicht, but this time it follows the adverbial. So here, unfortunately, precedes a suitable substitute player. In the third condition, we have the form of negation kein. And as in condition A, kein and precedes the adverbial, no suitable substitute player, unfortunately. And in the last condition, the adverbial precedes the form of negation kein. Okay, here are the results. On the left, you can see the ratings of the eine nicht sentences. And it's very clear that eine nicht sentences receive higher ratings when the NP precedes the adverb, meaning when it appears in a topic position, which is what we predicted. On the right, you can see the ratings for keinen sentences. You can see that, in contrast to the eine nicht sentences, keinen sentences show a substantial drop in acceptability when kein and precedes adverb, meaning when it appears in the topic. Here's some statistics for those who are interested. We computed a cumulative link mix model, and we tested the effects of topic position, form of negation, and the interaction of topic position and negation. And on the right, you can see that the p-values of these factors. So to sum up this talk, the phenomenon of inverse negative scope over topical indefinites challenged two widely held assumptions. First, it challenged the assumption that scope of negation is linear in German. And second, it challenges the claim that topical indefinites take wide scope. So indefinites in inverse negative scope sentences exhibit an exceptional scope pattern. They are topical, but take narrow scope. Our acceptability ratings have shown that inverse negative scope is more acceptable when the indefinite appears in a designated topic position, meaning before the sentential adverb. And since kind n cannot be a topic, it cannot appear in a designated topic position. This means that if the indefinite is a topic, eine nicht must be used instead of kind n. And this suggests that topicality does indeed motivate the use of inverse negative scope in German. That's it from my side. Thank you for your attention.
So we do have some minutes for questions and answers.
Thank you. I really enjoyed your talk. And something I've been wondering has been syntactic structure or word order triggered by discourse factors. I mean, in my days, syntax many decades ago, syntacticians were looking locally. But as I saw in prosody, sometimes if we have a phrase, we may have backward-looking mechanisms or forward. The speakers want to remind to the listener, you see, we were talking about this and relate to this phrase or to the next, he's going to say. And I mean to say, have you just find out discrete influence of discourse structure rather than within the phrase syntax?
We've only looked at
How can discourse, I mean, outside the phrase or the sentence, how can it influence within the phrase syntactic order?
outside of the sentence. Well, we've only looked at sentence topics so far, so I cannot really answer this. But do you mean, for instance, like discourse topics? What do you mean by discourse outside of the sentence?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very interesting talk. I was wondering, one reason you might think that topics like to take high scope in general is that they are connected to utterances, and you might think negation takes lower scope typically than a topic because it's more connected to the proposition. So something in that picture must be wrong given your data, right? So what is it, what's wrong about that picture, do you think?
That's what we're trying to figure out. I have this assumption that the indefinite is actually a PPI, and for some reason it doesn't want to follow the negation. It wants to precede the negation. Maybe there's a PPI, and since it doesn't want to be in a negation, it has to move in front of the negation.
I see. So this more classical view you think might still be right, but there's the language presents you with an impossible problem essentially. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. That was wonderfully clear. A simple question, please. What exactly did you ask your subjects when they were ranking on that 7-point scale? What was the question they were asked?
The question was to rate the sentences in relation to the context on a 7-point Likert scale.
to rate them?
Just rate them.
Okay.
We explained that 1 is very unacceptable and high, 7 is very good.
Okay.
We also gave them test items. Also had fillers.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have our next speaker, Yin Poyan or Poyandin. Here she is. Who's gonna talk us about structure of Mandarin VDE resultative.
Okay, today I'm going to talk about the structure of Mandarin V, the resultatives. So the construction of interest as given in example 1. So the construction is characterized by a post-verbal article de, and the expression contains 2 events with the interpretation that the first one causes the second one as a result. So example 1 means the clothes got wet because of Jonathan being tired. And previous analysis for this construction usually treat the verb as, namely the first verb, as the primary predicate. And there are 2 types of analysis that treating the post the chunk differently. So they either analyze it as a complement of the first verb, as in the tree in 3, or that post the chunk as a complement selected by the verb, or adjunct of the first verbal projection headed by the first verb. I'm gonna propose a very different structure of this construction. So I would analyze the post the chunk, namely the S bar in 3 and or the lower IP in 5, as the main clause, and what precedes. So basically the SV the sequence as the as a modifier, and about the article, I will analyze it as a linker, which marks a modification relation between the 2 events. Give us a unified analysis for the linker in Mandarin. Here are some examples. So when the construction has 2 subjects, as in 6, so baby cry, the mom wake up, the mom wake up because of the baby crying, would have the structure in 7. So what precedes this chunk is a modifier that modifies the whole IP mom wake up. Only have 1 subject in this construction, as in 8. The baby cried tired. The baby got tired because of him, her crying. Would have the structure in 9. Again, baby cried, that chunk is a modifier and modifies the following IP. Which contains a no pro that co-referential with the baby. Or next, I'm going to provide the evidence for the structure.
It was just not.
Oh, okay. So the first piece of evidence comes from constituency test. So for example, the claimed modifier phrase, that chunk, can be coordinated. One might say coordination is not a reliable task for constituency, but we can rule out right node raising analysis here because of 11. 11 is grammatical, and however, the base of the sentence, if there were right node raising, is ungrammatical. So it should be a reliable test here. And also the chunk can be used as a answer to a WH question, suggesting that it's constituent, which is assumed by the question answer pair in 12. Also, this chunk can be clefted, as in 13. And in particular, a scope taking a verb possibly can scope over only the clefted 14. So the expression in 14 can mean it is possibly because of the baby crying that mom woke up, which is incompatible with the continuation that actually the mom didn't wake up. There's some semantic evidence. This is the chunk as a modifier, so it's optional as in 15, and we can stack it as in 16. Right, apparently true that it doesn't fill any argument slots of the predicate, so it's a typical semantic modifier. Also, in the structure, only the second verb can form a not a question, which is only available for a matrix predicate, and this can be shown in the contrast between the B sentences and the A sentences in 17 and 18. So the grammatical ones has the second predicate forming an A not a question, but in contrast, forming such a question with the first predicate is one is a bit superficial. So the verb in the video can't be followed by a spectral marker, which kind of rule out that it's a. So back to the structure that I argue that this the first bit is a modifier, which means it's an adjunct, and indeed we found evidence that this shows an adjunct island extraction, or we can do clefting as an extraction. So 20A as our base sentence, which contains a fronted frequency expression from the matrix clause, and 20B as an attempt to extract the locative PP from the modifier chunk, where the T shows the traces. This is ungrammatical, and extracting an argument from this modifier clause give us a degraded example in 20C. In contrast, if we extract arguments or locative PPs from the main clause, it's all fine. So it shows us that the claimed modifier chunk is actually a selective island. The same pattern can be found with relativization. So relativizing the argument baby, it's easier than relativizing the adjunct. Let's confirm the fact. Next, I'm going to argue that the current analysis is better capturing the some other data compared to a previous analysis. So first of all, the current analysis can explain the ambiguity in 24. This is known as a ambiguous example. So Yo-Yo chased Tao. Tao can't move his leg. Can either have the reading Yo-Yo being the chaser, and so in the current analysis, we can assume a no pro in the modifier clause as in 25A, and then can give us the first reading. The no pro has the is co-referential with Tao Tao. And the second reading is the chaser and chasey relations reversed. So Tao Tao is the chaser, and in the assumed structure, we can propose a big pro there, and it's controlled by Tao Tao, and it's an instance of control. But we don't need any additional assumptions for that. And the current analysis also can explain the examples in 26. So Puffy bite the bone, bite the very uncomfortable, or bite the very shattered. So the first can only be interpreted as puffy being very uncomfortable, and the second one can only be interpreted as a bone being very shattered. So in the current analysis, we would assume a pro in this position, a small pro, that can either be referential with puffy or a bone. That gives us readings, and we don't need different structures for that. And finally, I would argue that the current analysis makes us a correct prediction. So as I've just mentioned, that the particle is treated as a linker, which is purely functional. That means it doesn't encode any resultative reading or causative readings there. We would expect a non-resultative reading, like English where present participle adjuncts, like in 29. So 29A has a simultaneous reading, but it's not resultative, but 29B has a resultative reading. This prediction is borne out, and there are ambiguous the expressions like 30. He eat the very happy can either mean he got very happy as a result of eating, or it can mean he is happy while eating, which is simultaneous reading. So in summary, the proposed analysis captured some peculiar properties of this construction without introducing ad hoc assumptions, and it potentially allows a unified account for all the expressions, as well as a border unification of the particles.
Thank you, Sieshani. So next talk is about language awareness and the standardization processes of the collateral language, and it's presented by Karina Stempel. Too good? That's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so language awareness and the standardization process, lateral language, Poland. I came from Poland. The research, my research in Podhale, a part of project. Of project Linguistic Diversity in Poland, Collateral Languages, Language-Oriented Collective Identity. Main objective of the grant project is to collateral language, Mazourian, Podlakian, Asian. The project is based on and intends to development of the notion of collateral languages. Polish linguistic traditionally distinct dialects, dialecty, smaller varieties, subdialects, var in Polish. Is often lost in academic with the term gwara. It is in a degrading manner that all non-standard varieties. Only Kashubian has the status of regional language now, but for a long time it was described by linguists dialect of standard variety of often based on written form. So I research based on question what are the proposal of standardization and what think okay what think people in Podhale about this proposition. Okay, Where is Podhale? So this is map of Poland. Podhale is located in southern Poland. It is very attractive tourist region, popular especially for mountain tourism and winter sports, practiced in the Tatra mountains, the highest mountains in Poland. An important element of promoting the region has been the preservation of traditional Highlander culture, characterized by its distinctiveness and durability. The culture and language of the Highlanders have long been a symbol of freedom and pride in Poland. Podhale became one of the favorite literary motifs during the Romantic period. The tradition of using the Highlander subdialect, Podhalanian subdialect, in literature also dates back to the 19th century. It was linked to the simultaneous creation of the myth of the Highlanders, which included such elements as their strong sense of independence, living in harmony with nature, and better health than people living in the lowlands. Until the 1990s, the region was dominated by agriculture and pastoralism, with tourism as well as migration, especially to the USA, merely supplementing traditional forms of income. Currently, tourism is the main source of income for the inhabitants of Podhale. The tourist center, as in previous centuries, is Zakopane, but other resorts are also becoming increasingly popular, especially among winter sports enthusiasts. Primarily villages where tourist infrastructure has developed, such as Bukowina Tatrzańska, Białka Tatrzańska, etc. The 20th century and recent decades have seen not only an increase of the popularity of Podhale as a tourist center, but also the development of literature and dialect culture. The promotion of culture is carried out by local associations, non-governmental organizations, institutions, and cultural centers. It also includes festivals, regional and thematic markets, outdoor and holiday events. The Podhalian Association, with a total of 80 branch and centers, also in other regions of Poland and abroad, plays an important role in integration and promotion. The activities of numerous regional ensembles, as well as the broadly understood regionalist movement, are extremely important in terms of preserving the language and traditions. For the majority of Highlanders, family and loved ones are the most important things in life. The important role of family, multi-generational family, including distant relatives, and the community also translates into other elements of reality, such as language practices and language ideologies. So, one of the key factors driving to the standardization of Góralski collateral language or Podhalanian subdialect has been the increasing linguistic awareness among the speakers of the dialect. This awareness has been shaped by several factors, including the academic interest in regional languages, the growth of the language activism, and the recognition of the dialect's value as a cultural resource. In previous centuries, we had some proposition of standardization of Góralski collateral language or Podhalanian subdialect. And you can see the selected concepts. First one was before the Second World War, but the post-war years did not bring any new proposals. In this century, we have two important propositions. First one by Józef Kąś, Ilustrowany leksykon Gwary i kultury podhalańskiej, Illustrated Lexicon of the Podhale Dialect and Culture. And the second one by Jerzy Rubach and Tomasz Łuszczek. And I will tell you some things about this second proposition. This was a new method of writing Góralski language, completely different from proposition of the Józef Kąś. And it was proposed in 2022 in some event during the lecture in Dzianisz. It is a village in Podhale. Jerzy Rubach started the script, stated that the script should meet the criterion of scientific correctness, the pragmatic criterion, the criterion of social acceptance. The meeting in Dzianisz, which I also attended as an observer, went beyond the usual format of a lecture presenting the conclusions of the author's research. The presence of dialectologists from the Jagiellonian University, Józef Kąś and Maciej Rak, as well as other researchers, resulted in a heated and at times even stormy discussion on the validity of the spelling proposals put forward by the speakers. The opponents did not reach a satisfactory consensus during the meeting in Dzianisz. According to the SWAN, standardization is a process in which a standard language, a relatively uniform variety of language, is created. As you can see, Darkness and van der Bus cited the definition when discussing the implication of the model proposed by Haugen, which includes 4 stages of standardization: selection, codification, implementation, and development. Opinions from the side of the normal users or ordinary users of language was different than propositions that made scholars, because people in people with wait a minute. With I talked, they told that for them a very important thing is authentic of language. So research into ethno-linguistic vitality is in Podhale has identified, among other things, how strong the ideology of language ownership is in this region. Highlanders, in the majority, consider only people belonging to their community by descent, those who have learned the language at home and in the community as legitimate speakers. They have a rather negative view of attempts by outsiders to use Highlander, to use Góralski language, which is linked, among other things, to the use of the Podhale dialect in the media, which they regard as inappropriate, but also to the belief that newcomers are unable to acquire the language properly so as not to make mistakes. Okay, language practices, as I told, are other than propositions from the university. Regardless of academic disputes, discussions, creators who use Highlander Polish as a code in writing or translation and ordinary users of the language employ a whole range of diverse strategies, more or less similar to academic proposals, but most often based on the principle of maximum simplification of spelling and the rule of I write as I hear. Okay, so conclusion. One activist from Poronin said that in the because they have very different schools of dialect writing, I write as I hear is the most useful strategy. Okay, so as can be seen from the above mentioned review of proposals for the standardization and opinion of the people, and from the analysis of the interviews with the inhabitants of Podhale, the situation of this language is currently quite complicated. It seems, therefore, that despite its long literary tradition, the important role of this subdialect in literature and culture and the presence of various dictionary proposals, Podhale has still not moved beyond point first of Haugen's model, the choice of the standard variety in many areas of written language use. Scientific discussion are conducted in, at last partial, isolation from the practices of ordinary language users, for whom greater awareness does not mean a desire to give their own language a higher status, and thus to adopt a single interpretation of its spelling, orthography, standardization. It is therefore difficult to predict the direction that efforts to standardize the Highlander subdialect, Podhalanian subdialect or Góralski language take in the future and how they will be received by the inhabitants of Podhale. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dziękuję. Any questions? Remarks, please.
Thanks very much. Could you give us say a word about what happens in school? So presumably children have standard Polish. Is there awareness of the differences?
Yes, there were some kind of regional language lessons, but Highlanders don't want this lesson because they think that Podhalanian subdialect, it's a subdialect, it's a language of home, of neighborhood, of a village. So school, it's not quite needed for this transmission. But of course, it's a big problem because children do not use Podhalanian subdialect as they grandparents or parents because of times. So we have Polish in TV, we have media, yes, we have internet. Yes, we have English as a common language. So there is a big problem. We don't know what will be with this subdialect, this collateral language, as we named it, in the future. Thank you.
Any other question? No? Okay. Thank you again. So our last oral presentation this morning will be by Zhang Xiaoming, please. And the title is very long, but okay, I'll try to say it. Negotiate Uncertainty in Human and Artificial Intelligence Academic Writing. That's the first part of the title, but you get the full title soon.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for joining me. And my name is Xiaoming Zhang, and I'm from University of Modena and Reggio Emilia in Italy. I'm now the PhD student. I will introduce my recent project titled Negotiating Certainty in Human and AI Academic Writing. So it's a comparative study to analyze the two main matter discourse hedges and boosters by students, experts, and Gen AI. So here's my overview from background to my future job. Because I'm now studying the interactional matter discourse in academic writing. I really want to know how the Highlands model can use to compare the different writer groups like students and experts, and nowadays the Gen AI. So academic writers strategically employ stance features like hedges and booster to manage authorial alignment. So here's the Highlands model, interaction model. It's very well known and famous one. Mainly, I chose hedges and booster as my research objective. And also, I really want to know how the certainty as negotiated space between human and AI writing. Because in academic discourse, certainty and doubt are not binary, they are strategically negotiated. And also, not only human writers employ hedging to build credibility and align with disciplinary norms, but also the AI generated text also use some hedges and booster. So this raised a certain question for the Gen AI era. How do humans and Gen AI differ in expressing epistemic stance? So I proposed two research questions, and because the first two already have the pilot findings, but for the last two, it's still in the progress. So I made the literature review and I do the quick review about this part. And we can see that overall trends in human versus AI academic writing is really represented by human writers display greater disciplinary awareness, rhetorical flexibility, and sensitivity to epistemic nuances. But for AI-generated texts are generally more familitic and lexical repetitive, often mimic the surface cohesion of expert writing, but lacking deeper pragmatic control. So while AI can emulate the form of academic argumentation, it tends to overgeneralize stance markers. So it's resulting like appearance of confidence or assertiveness without context appropriate modulation. So I want to fight the gap and toward integrate perspective on certainty negotiation. And I found current study often isolate textual comparison like human and AI or learner's perception, but seldom integrate both. And secondly, I found that a few have examined AI-generated academic writing from rhetorical perspective like move analysis. And even fewer have compared how students, experts, and AI writers differ in negotiating certainty. So I divided corpus into the four subcorporal: MA thesis, PhD dissertation, These two are from top 5 Chinese universities specialized in applied linguistics. And for the published RA research article, it's from Applied Linguistics, like or Journal for English, a Journal of English for academic purpose. And also, I used the similar prompts to do the AI introduction. I adopted ChatGPT generated. So each one have like 30 numbers of a task to compare to realize the comparability. So the coding and the annotation, I combined move analysis and the stance annotation to capture both rhetorical structure and interpersonal meaning. So for the because it's an introduction, so I adopt the CARS model from Swells to create a research space, move 1, move 2, and move 3. And with each move, also I annotate the hedges and booster to examine how certainty is negotiatedly functional across rhetorical contexts. So I used UAM Corpus 2 to do the manual multi-layer annotation. Layer 1, as I said before, is a move, and layer 2 is the stance device. And also I use scanning engine to do the keyword extraction and collocation. So here's the layers for annotation I use in UM Corpus 2, both for moves and stance. So this is the screenshot I put here to show the pilot annotation. So the first layer is moves, and next layer is hedges and boosters. And because I did the pilot study and I have the preliminary findings, like 10 texts per corpus, and I found that this table shows like for the hedges and booster increased with academic experience from MA, PhD to the research article written by the experts. And also AI generated text shows the lowest distance density. So here's the distribution of two meta discourse across corpora, and we can see there's an increase in line between words corpora. And also from the moves, we can find that actually human writer hedges dominant move 1 and move 2, like at the background and also the gap. But the booster peak in move 3 to occupying the niche, especially for claim the current research. And for AI text, its overuse uses the hedging in move 1 because move 1 is to establish the territory, to introduce this topic, the background, and it's underused in move 2 and move 3, less rhetorical collaboration. Also, this figure is to show the distribution across moves, and we can find the comparison between AI and human is actually differentiate. So from the quantitative point of view, I did the pilot study, and also I did some quantitative through the close reading, the concordance analysis to find the functional difference. We can find from example 1, the cautious interpretation. Student writer often use the hedges like this one, may suggest epistemic hedge to mitigate claim strengths showing awareness of empirical limitation. And it's to maintain academical modesty and align with disciplinary norms. And for the expert, we can use that the experts can balance by previously hedged the statements in early moves, showing rhetorical collaboration. And for the AI-generated writing, actually, unlike human writers, AI text combines multiple boosters without contextual justification. It will raise some rhetorical flatness because it has grammatical fluency but low grammatical control. So this is the hierarchical of features I found for the rhetorical maturity. So we can find from AI students and experts, the maturity is increasing. For the AI is confident, flat, non-strategic. For the student writers, it may be cautious, formulating and developing. But for the expert one, it has balance or authoritative use of Hadrian booster. This is the functional distribution of Hedges booster across moves and the writer types. And we can find for the move one, experts use evidential and hedges to build credibility. For the students, they adopt the hedges uniformly and formulated style. And also in the move two, experts maintain discipline politeness because it's the hedges for to identify the research gap, and students underuse hedges when critiquing others. And for the move three, it's also have the diversion of using hedges and booster because for the experts, they use booster in this part is significance of this research. So they use the boost to assert contribution. And for the students, it's misplaced boosters or the minimal one. And AI overuse booster across all moves, creating rhetorical flatness. So my next step and future direction will, I try to expand the corpus and the data, include more AI-generated introductions, and also examine change in stance expression with updated prompts and AI versions. Because I did my job in ChatGPT 4, but now it has 5. And also for my last two questions, as I mentioned before, I want to do the questionnaire and interview study planned at my previous university, Beijing Language Culture University. And I want to do the target participants, MA and PhD students at this university. And I want to focus how they perceive Hadrian and boosting in their own writing and how they nowadays use the AI tools like ChatGPT or DeepSeek when revising stance. So here's my all references here. Thank you for joining me for this session.
Thank you very much. I'm sure some people have questions or remarks.
Thank you very much. I have a question. How are you sure that those students didn't use ChatGPT to generate like part of their works, which you then collected as your corpus?
Because my corpus is actually for the AI generated one is I to put the prompts here. Like there's the introduction written by students or experts, and I found some similarity, and I create the prompts for GPT, and also I tell the GPT you should follow the CARS model because that's the thing we can do the comparability through the oldest copper. Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
More questions? Yes.
I have a question about how to conduct or design the questionnaires or the interviews at the target university you mentioned.
Because I know I noticed some students in BLCU, they have very excellent students who are MA and PhD students majoring applied linguistics. So this is my original idea to make them as my interviews. And also I want to do because the students, they are in China. So I want to do the questionnaire through the Chinese platform because now we have Google to collect the maybe the questionnaire or some questions, but for the students, they may banned by the access. So I will use the Chinese platform to do the questionnaire part. And also I want to conduct the interview, like choose the 5 to 10 students, because I found that in my lit review part, I found some students or experts, they do this interview always choose some experts, but lack the awareness to choose students. So I want to fill in this gap.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, so good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here today. It is a great pleasure for me to have been invited to participate in this 70th edition of the International Conference on Linguistic Research and Applications. My name is Marina González de San Pedro Jiménez, and I am a first-year PhD student at the University of La Rioja, which is a region in the north of Spain. And I am also part of the CLAUR Applied Linguistics research group, which deals mainly with vocabulary acquisition in English SNL 2 and SNL 3. But my research lines particularly focus on multilingual educational learners' lexical profiles. And the title of my presentation today is Exploring the Impact of CLIL on High School Learners' Spanish L1 Vocabulary Production. So for that, my talk will be divided into 3 main parts. The first section will deal with content and language integrated learning, which I will refer from here onwards as CLIL, and also previous research studies concerning CLIL and L1 linguistic competence, as these are the 2 central aspects of my paper. The second section will be devoted to lexical availability, as it is the data collection task that I employed in this study. And the third and last part will present the results and main findings of this paper. So content and language integrated learning can be defined as a dual-focused educational approach in which an additional language is used for the learning and teaching of both content and language. It was firstly implemented in Europe during the 1990s as a means to reinforce the presence of English at the classroom, and its rapid widespread was due to 2 main factors. The first one was the poor results of traditional foreign language teaching methods, and the second one was the European educational policies favoring multilingualism. However, the different linguistic contexts across Europe have resulted in a wide diversity of CLIL programs, adapting to the needs and characteristics of the area where it was implemented. So for this reason, we will focus on La Rioja, which is the region where I conducted this research. And in La Rioja, we can find 2 different ways of implementing CLIL. On the one hand, we have the bilingual sections, which is extended nationwide and consists of teaching 30% of the curriculum through the medium of English. And on the other hand, we have what they call school language innovation projects. And these include 3 different models in which the exposure to the foreign language varies from just using it to do some greetings or just for some commonly used phrases to teaching the whole curriculum in English. So the objective of these programs, of these 4 programs, is that learners become fluent in English by the end of secondary education, or what we can also call as high school. So although we can find a number of research studies addressing the effects of CLIL on a wide array of linguistic aspects, such as grammar, vocabulary, or oral skills in English SNL 2, the effects that CLIL may have on learners' mother tongue is still underexplored. And in fact, we are only aware of 3 previous papers that examine the impact of CLIL on learners L1 in terms of literacy, as is the case of San Isidro and La Sagabaster research in 2018, verbal intelligence and motivation, as did Pérez Cañado in 2018, and students' results in the Spanish language subject tests, as did Navarro Pablo and López Gándara in 2019. So the results of these previous studies evidenced a positive impact of CLIL on learners L1 at both primary and secondary school or education levels, as researchers acknowledge improvement in L1 proficiency, greater motivation, and higher metalinguistic awareness. So these studies somehow deny the menace that CLIL may have on learners L1. So this is like the stigma that these programs normally have when they are firstly applied. Nevertheless, research is still needed to explore the effects of CLIL on learners' L1 lexical competence. So that's what I'm trying to do today. So just to finish off with the theoretical part, we're going to talk about lexical availability. Lexical availability can be understood both as a concept and as a data collection task. When referred to as a concept, lexical availability entails all the cognitive processes necessary to search, retrieve, and recall words in the mental lexicon. And as a data collection task, it involves the activation of specific words in the mind when thinking about semantic categories or prompts that serve as stimuli. So, although this instrument was initially implemented to select the most appropriate vocabulary to be included in French as a foreign language didactic materials during the 1950s, the versatility of this tool has led to various scenarios and purposes. And for instance, the lexical availability task explores the productive vocabulary of both native speakers and foreign language users from cognitive, sociolinguistic, and pedagogical perspectives. And in this respect, we must highlight several research studies that have analyzed EFL learners' productive vocabulary in terms of vocabulary size, lexical sophistication, or the organization of the mental lexicon. So as I've just told you, the primary objective of this research study is exploring whether CLIL has a positive or negative impact on high school learners' productive vocabulary in Spanish as an L1. So in order to meet this objective, I will try to answer these following research questions. So the first one is, do CLIL learners own a smaller productive vocabulary than traditional EFL learners in Spanish L1? And the second question is, do CLIL and non-CLIL learners share their most available words in Spanish as an L1? So with this respect, 11 CLIL and 10 traditional EFL 8th grade learners were tested their productive vocabulary in terms of a lexical availability task. Learners were explained the instructions of the test in Spanish, and then they were asked to produce as many words as came to their mind during a 2-minute time slot for each of the different prompts that we proposed. And in this case, there were 4. We have comida y bebida, sorry, which is food and drink in English. We also had amor y felicidad, which would stand for love and happiness. We have also celebraciones y festivos, which in English stands for parties and celebrations. And the last one is educación física, which in English means physical education. So one of the subjects that is taught through the medium of English. So these results were then coded and processed in a Microsoft Excel file according to the CLIL variable and following certain protocols that have been used previously in lexical availability research studies. So just to name a few, spelling mistakes were corrected, unintelligible words or words written in other language different from Spanish were erased, repeated words were counted only once, and lexical phrases were lemmatized just as one lexical unit. Finally, LexPro was the program that we used to conduct a data analysis. This tool was developed by the University of Salamanca and the University of Elche to process lexical data coming from these lexical availability tasks. And as the main objective of the research is analyzing the effects that CLIL may have on learners' productive vocabulary in Spanish, we performed 2 different kind of analysis. On the one hand, a quantitative analysis in terms of type token ratio and a t-test. And in the case of the qualitative analysis, we explore the type and token production of the learners, as well as the most available words that they retrieved. So let's check now the results that we had. So in order to answer the first research question related to the vocabulary size, table 2 conveys the type and token production, as well as the TTR or type token ratio. So if we take a look at the type and token production, we can see that CLIL learners outperform their non-CLIL peers. And as regards lexical diversity, that is measured through TTR, we can see that traditionally FL learners display a greater lexical diversity. But we have to take these results with caution because of the restricted amount of participants of the study. So just to see if the difference of type and token production was significant, we performed a Belk's t-test, and here in table 3, you have the results of it. So we're going to focus on the p-value, and as you can see, the figures are over 0.05, so that means that they were not statistically significant. Nevertheless, the results from the Educación Física or physical education prompt were unexpected, as CLIL learners displayed the greater difference here, although they were getting this subject through the medium of English. So it was a little uncommon to see this. Then regarding the second research question about learners' most available words, here in table 4, we have the top 10 most available responses for the two groups. So here in bold, we have the coincidences between the two groups. So we can see that they share 4 words in the case of comida y bebida, food and drink. But in the case of the rest of the prompts, amor y alegría, celebraciones y festivos, and educación física, we can see that they share 6 of these words. So that's a lot, yeah? But this is a little bit curious because they do share more words when the prompts are more dependent on experience. And if we take a look at the non-share words, we see that the CLIL group also produced words related to cultural aspects of the L2, such as pizza here. And in the case of celebrations, they also elicited Halloween. So that's also curious to see, like, they have no such a great boundary between the two languages and cultures, right? Because they are in a CLIL program. So then, if we take a look at the number of repetitions, we see that CLIL learners produced more times the most available words. So that suggests a more solid and homogeneous vocabulary among the members of this group. And just having analyzed the results from this lexical availability task, it is time to answer the previously formulated research questions. So the first research question was related to the vocabulary size of learners in L1. And in this respect, we can see, or we can affirm, that CLIL learners possess a more extensive vocabulary because of the type and token results. However, these results were not statistically significant. Yeah. In this respect, we can see that our results somehow align with the previous research on Spanish and linguistic competence, because we see that CLIL learners have like an advantage. Yeah. And as regards the second research question related to the most available words, we see that CLIL learners retrieved more homogeneous responses. And additionally, these two groups shared more words in open nature that we call prompts. So this may reflect similar extralinguistic and cultural experiences among learners in general. So to conclude, we can state that this paper presentation has attempted to make a contribution to the research field of CLIL, and more specifically to the vocabulary acquisition by offering interesting insights on the effects that CLIL may have on learners' productive vocabulary in Spanish L1. So, however, as the sample of participants was limited to 21 students, we should view these results as exploratory rather than conclusive. So this hypothesis may serve for future research, having a bigger sample of participants. And additionally, this paper opens new lines of research, such as exploring learners' productive vocabulary across the whole linguistic repertoire. And in this regard, oncoming studies could cross-linguistically compare CLIL and non-CLIL learners' productive vocabulary, as well as to explore whether these findings also apply to other European contexts. So here we can do a collaboration if you would like. And well, that is all. Thank you very much for listening. Here you have the references that I've used for this paper presentation. And if you have any questions, just feel free. Thank you.
The two groups.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The two groups that you contrasted, how did they get into those groups?
Yeah. So at school, they have different models that they can enroll at. So one is like the ordinary one, in which they have all the subjects being taught through Spanish, and then they have English as a subject. So that's the ones that I've called traditional EFL. And then we have the CLIL, that they participate in the bilingual sections program. So that means that 30% of the curriculum is being taught through the medium of English. So in this case, science and physical education was being delivered through English. So they get more hours of exposure. That's how we separate them. That's what the previous studies showed. But also when learning Spanish as a subject. Yeah.
Any other question? Okay. So thank
you
you
very
Marina.
much.
Thank you very much.
Bonjour. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this short talk about investigating the role of visual attention of vocabulary acquisition using eye tracking technology. My name is Dr. Yasmin Al-Awi. I'm an associate professor of applied linguistics at Qasim University, KSA. As you all know, vocabulary acquisition is central to language learning, and words are the building blocks of any language. Actually, without sufficient vocabulary, learners will not be able to develop reading, writing, listening skills. And one of the most recent developments or techniques in the in vocabulary research is called eye tracking technology. These are the objectives of my research: evaluate vocabulary recognition, assess vocabulary production, analyze correlation between recognition and production, determine difficulty levels, evaluate eye tracking metrics, develop vocabulary assessment tools. This study aimed to answer these three research questions. Number one, how accurately can participants recognize vocabulary words when presented with visual images? Number two, how effectively can participants produce vocabulary words based on visual stimuli? Number three, what is the relation between vocabulary word recognition and word production in terms of accuracy and response time? Now, coming to the methodology, first, participants. The study involved 10 participants. Actually, this is a pilot study. The full-scale research was not conducted yet. Between the participants were aged between 18 to 25 years old. They were recruited from a research institute. They are all speakers of Arabic, native speakers of Arabic, and they have varying levels of English proficiency. The participants were certainly recruited or selected upon their consent. Materials, number one, eye tracking equipment. Eye tracking equipment is kind of eyeglasses that measure the eye gazes, fixation points, seconds, movements. The equipment which was used is 2B Pro glasses. Actually, I borrowed it from a colleague because my institution, honestly speaking, does not have this equipment. Vocabulary test items. The test consisted of 60 words with varying levels of difficulty, simple, from simple, intermediate, and complex words. The vocabulary items were carefully chosen, including nouns, verbs, and adjectives. And then the vocabulary acquisition task. The main experiment consisted of two phases. The first phase is the exposure phase. The other phase is testing phase. As for the exposure phase, the participants were presented with images and their corresponding words on a computer screen in a randomized order. Each trial lasted for 5 seconds. The first 2 seconds display the image alone, followed by simultaneous presentation of the image. The second phase, it is the testing phase. So the students took the test that lasted for 30 minutes. It consisted of 2 tasks, a recognition task and a production task. Data collection analysis. Vocabulary test scores were calculated based on the number of correct answers in both the recognition and production tasks. Statistical analyses were also used to examine the relationship between eye tracking metrics and vocabulary test scores. These are the results, summary of results. Participants' performance on vocabulary test. Number one, the findings indicated a significant correlation between visual attention and vocabulary acquisition. 2 participants who spent longer fixation on images associated with new vocabulary demonstrated higher rotation rates. Additionally, quicker seconds between the image and words were linked to improved understanding. And these are the detailed results with the statistics. Now I'll jump over to the conclusion because the time is too limited. The results and actually I prepared my presentation according to the time allotted for my presentation. The results indicated a clear relationship between visual attention as measured by eye tracking metrics and vocabulary acquisition performance. Longer fixation durations in both images and words correlate with higher vocabulary retention, while increased seconds, frequency, and regression fixation correlate with lower retention rates. The complexity of vocabulary items significantly influence both eye tracking patterns and test performance. Last but not least, future studies may expand on these findings by exploring different age groups, modalities, and learning contexts. With that, I have reached to the end of this presentation. I hope you find what I presented to you useful and enjoyable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Are there any question or comments? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you check the influence of like the stimuli type on its recall? Because it's known that verbs are remembered like harder than nouns, even when they are presented with an image. So did you check it, or are you planning to check it?
Your question again?
Like,
So what do you mean by stimuli? What type of stimuli?
I mean your words that you presented to the participants, like the nouns and the verbs. Will you be like investigating how the nouns and the verbs in those three groups are remembered?
Actually, this was not amongst the research aims. You mean the category of the word as a noun, the relationship between
Because it
word
may have
recall,
influence.
depending if it is a noun or a verb or no, actually not.
Okay.
But level of difficulty in general.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, this is a sample question item. This is how the questions look like. The students are presented with image and they have to select the correct image.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Thank you.
So the next presentation, as you saw, is about directional morphology by Linda Doncansing. I hope it's okay. Okay. Thank you, Linda.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's my first time in Paris as well. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I'm so honored and privileged to be amongst you all. I love the hospitality, and bonjour is and merci. Just pick up a few words. I'm a learner, just a student, beginning a language enthusiast. I'm just have the opportunity to be around an environment, especially in the Indo-Myanmar borderland area, where there are a lot of languages, like more than 200 or so languages, where a lot of them which are also endangered, and having the privilege to just be in that area. And I came from there, the northeast part of India. So this paper is an attempt to describe and document the lexical, how the lexicon is expanded, how word class shifts, how the meaning is manipulated, and give highlight to the typology and language structure. So so the illustrations will be mostly in Tedimchin, that is the northern Kukichin Tibeto-Burman language family. The methodology, mainly it is primarily descriptive. It is an attempt to document and describe the derivational morphology. So the limitation is that morphology and its derivational morphology can be broad and fascinating area of linguistic study. However, for the purpose of this presentation, it is limited to derivational aspect, focusing only on the derivational affixes, that is a prefix or suffix, and maybe one major pattern, that is normalization of verbs. So it can be the derivational morphology is a study of how new words are formed in language by adding affixes, or by a form or a base which is already existing. And it refers to the process of forming new words by from a base or from existing morphemes, usually by attaching an affix. In this case, it will be mostly a prefix and suffix, as it does not have infix and circumfixes. So derivational prefix here, su is functions as a causative prefix. When this prefix is attached to the root, it produces a semantic changes to the word. It indicates that the action is being done by someone else, and it gives a meaning of cost or making of X verb or adjectives as well. For example, here in example 1 and 2, we can see without the prefix, if we have cup, that means the baby's crying. The baby's crying But however, if we have su, it is like thangpu in naungek sukap, like it has, yeah. So the sukap is causing as the action that is being caused by thangpu, which is the typical local name there. Nak is is an intensifier. It is used, so in this language, though I did not put it here, there is this stem alternation, which is very common, especially in verbs and adjectives, undergoing a lot of like morphophonemic processes. But so here we see that in this study, we can see some of these prefixes, some of these affixes are being able to be attached only to stem 1 and stem 2 or in certain clause, etc. But in this presentation, I'm restraining myself mostly to words or just phrases. In here, with attached nak is attached to adjective with stem 1 roots. Ma is another, it is used as directional marker for word or advance. It could also mean front or ahead, depending on the root word with which it is attached. So kai would be lead, but it would be like if we add ma, then it is like we are leading it forward. It is suggesting the direction in which the lead is, in which the verb is taking place. I'll move on to nominalization of verbs. So nominalization of verbs mainly is a common phenomena with many of the Tibeto-Burman languages. Normally, normalized expressions are derived from process of nominalization. And in a noun phrase, lexical nominalization is formed by the nominalizer, that is na as a suffix. It is used both in the formal and informal speech, as well as in both in stem 1, usually in stem 2, sorry, and highly productive in class changing, a highly productive class changing suffix. It is also sometimes referred to as adverbalizer, which can also be attached to adjectives. Here, if you see verb plus noun, any verb that we see, if we just attach the word na in at the end, it turns the whole word into a noun. So sleep, and then if you say if you have sleep plus na, then it becomes the bed, like that. So win, zona, victory, and so on. So in the formation of noun verbs, of noun from verbs, that is stem 2 plus a nominalizer, there is change of segments in the verb. The existing phoneme is replaced by a new phoneme in the derived word. Okay. Agentive nominalization. Agentive nominalization is refers to as the agent of the nominalized verb. We can see in here in Tedim Chin as Lassa, singer, Lassanu. Oh, I'm sorry with the reference number, the examples there. It's instrumental and local nominalization. Instrumental is also used here with, for example, tutna. Tu is a second verb, stem 2, and with a nominalizer, a place where the sitting is, or sit, or place of sitting. Here is an example as some data on the diminutive suffixes. And for example, ta as a suffix is used to express smallness of size for non-human inanimate objects. Lota, temta, like knife or a basket. Augmentative suffix, we have p, which is both it has a meaning of greatness and vastness. It used with nouns and other word classes as well. When it is used with female animate objects, it denotes maturity or motherhood. Apart from it, the suffix can also be used with non-animate objects, which usually stand for big or grand or magnified object. So there are a few examples: human beings and animals and nature being classified there. This is a negative suffix. Since the language does not have a lot of antonymous counterparts, the word low is used to negate particles or negate even the words as a negative marker. For example, if it is good and not good, it can be used low. Yeah, K is another negative marker. Here are a number of classified. This is a language that is rich in noun classifiers, tang, pum, pe, kong. So there are many languages like that, but classifiers are bound morphemes that is used to accompany nouns and can be considered to classify a noun on which it is attached depending on the types of its reference. So here tang, it will refer to seed-like object like tau. Tau is a gun, and then gun, seed-like object, that means bullet, or anything that we have like duck. If we have water, if it is a hook is pit-like, and so water pit-like, that means well. So in that way, the language is creating more words. For example, pen is something that in those days they weren't using it, but now they say paper, like kung paper is a paper, paper is and a kung is a tree like, and so that is the word that they use for pen. Pum, it is used for round like object. My pum, my we can also say as a pumpkin itself there, but without the pum, it's not complete because there are several types of pumpkin. Yeah, and yeah, I want to summarize this with a few notes here saying that many derivational forms encode culturally specific meanings, revealing how morphology reflects worldview, social structure, and cultural aspects among the Kukichin community. For instance, the P, meaning big or great, when attached to animate nouns, animate noun conveys not just physical size, but social maturity and status. This shows how the Tadamchin worldview associates greatness with adulthood, respect, and parental identity, revealing a strong cultural emphasis on on family and age hierarchy that exists in the community. Yep. Thank you so much. Yes. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. If there are any questions in the room? Or comment?
Thank you. I saw that a lot of the morphology is suffixal, but then the causative and the intensifier is prefixal.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that correlates with that contrast? The general pattern of the suffixal morphology and then the more specific one of the prefixal morphology. For instance, is it verbs versus the rest, or is there?
Yeah.
Do you have any sense why those two are different?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm not really sure whether I'm getting your question right, but there are a lot of other like prefixes, like causatives and other functions, and also double occurrences of prefixes or affixes as well. It's because it's highly agglutinating, and yeah, those are still something that I'm still looking into. Thank you.
Any other question? Oh, thank you. Microphone is coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. You gave us examples early on of items that you talked of as derivational affixes, like the one that gave us female singer from singer, nominalizations, and then at the end you showed noun derivatives, but you called those classifiers. Now, is there a difference in a principled way between the one that gave us the well as opposed to, let's say, the female singer or the event or whatever?
Yeah. For example, lasa lasanu, in the sense like if it is a nominalizer, it is when it is attached to the noun, the word, the verb, or the adjective, then it nominalizes the whole word and it changes the meaning, the class as well, and it changes the meaning. But in case of the classifiers, how do I put it? It just describes the particular thing in a different way, describing you you would I perhaps like be able to explain it better because I heard the presentation on classifiers earlier, but it is a prefix or suffix that is needed in order to have the word class have the different meaning of the word, creating new word. For example, tui is there, but tui hook is not there. But the hook can be added to a lot of other nouns, which tui means, by the way, water, and then hook is the classifier. So it can be added to any other words that would make it sound like, and when it is attached, totally change the meaning of the word.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
but
similarly, the feminine marker, can't that be attached to all sorts of nouns and totally changes of the word from male to female? The one you had for singer, wasn't that similar? You had an affix that changes the meaning of the word and can be applied to a whole set of other words.
I think I still have to look that into. Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Thank you very much. So ready for the next presentation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Dongheng Pan from University of Geneva, Faculty of Translation and Interpreting. So I was trained as a simultaneous interpreter. So I will tell you something of the visual attention and cognitive load in such an extreme language use. So simultaneous interpreting has been considered always to be an extreme usage of language because speakers need to, so the interpreters need to listen to a language and then produce another language at the same time. And research mainly focuses on the auditory attention. So what's the language they listen to and how do they affect the quality of the produced languages. But we believe that, so for an interpreter, what they see, for example, in such a scene like this, in an auditorium, so the audience and the presentation and the speaker themselves and the gesture they use still plays a role. So we see that visual cues such as the gazes, the gestures guide language comprehension by refining the referential mappings and reduce the cognitive load. And sometimes the mismatched cues, for example, when I point this and I mention something else, it may sometimes increase the load for language processing. And diacritic cues or the pointing, it means I refer to this, I'm pointing to here. So this might provide direct referential precision. So we believe that congruent gestures, that means I see this and point at this, this may help to reduce the load, and incongruent ones or the conflicting ones may generate conflict, and neutral ones may increase the cognitive load. So we test this with eye tracking. So we also have an eye tracking experiment with a previous speaker. So we tested in the lab, and we used the created stimuli. What we measure is the cognitive load by measuring the changes of the pupil. So we believe that when the pupil size is bigger, that signifies a cognitive load. And we also measure their attention. That's where do the participants look at during the screen. So we did it with the eye tracker. So information of both the where to look at while doing simultaneous interpreting and sizes. And we have a microphone that records both the original and the translated outputs. So for this round experiment, we had 24 participants. So they were professional interpreters working at the international organizations in Geneva. And we have them at an average age of 41 and an experience of 11 years. And half of them have French as their A language, and half of them as Spanish, their A language. So that means they listen to English and interpret to their respective A languages. And we have stimuli. So we have 30 stimuli. So the videos and speaker on the left. So we have 3 conditions. So congruent conditions means, for example, we have all the stimuli in the same sentence structure. For example, in the desert, the man sees a large camel. So the incongruent condition, the congruent conditions, I see the camel, I point at the camel. So the incongruent condition is the conflicting condition. I see the camel, I point at the cactus. So the opposite thing. And the neutral condition is in the desert, the man sees a large camel without any cues given. And we also have a filler or a axle after the critical sentence. Like there are 2 deserts in this large area in order to play a role as a spillover for them to finish the sentence to prevent the recording is cutting off before they finish the simultaneous interpreting. So we tested with the eye tracker, we measure fixation and the pupil. In order to collect the pupil data in a reliable way, we use the headrest. We remove the chin rest in order to maintain the distance between the eyes and the tracker. So for the analysis, we used the generalized additive model to account for the nonlinear features of how the attention or how the pupil size change over time. So we have 3 conditions. So we have congruent, incongruent, and neutral conditions. So this line, the purple one, is the look to the head. So you see that the head is what was gazed the most by the interpreter. But what we are interested in is the differences between the attention to the orange line and the green line. The orange is the camel. So yeah, we see the camel, we point at the camel. And the green one is the competitor, the cactus. So we see that in the congruent condition, so the disambiguation happens the earlier. And the incongruent condition, that means when the conflict happens, point at the cactus when talking about camel, the attention was first directed to what was pointed to. So the visual was dominant, the visual cue was dominant. And then it was a way of the correction. And in the neutral cues as a baseline, so we see that disambiguation happens very late. So at the end, when the object or when the target was actually uttered. So you see that in the congruent condition, so there are more looks on the target. So in the congruent condition than the incongruent condition. So in the first two windows, so in the qualifier, so a large cactus in the large window and in the cactus window. And this is also true in congruent conditions. There are more target looks than the neutral conditions. But when we are comparing the neutral conditions with the in condition, we see that when the cactus or when the camel was actually uttered, so first, the window, at the later part of this window, the incongruent condition takes over. We see a tug of war of the tension between these two items. And this is more the attention was already taken to the target. And in the incongruent condition, first the attention was on the competitor. So if it was, so I'm seeing cactus, when I'm seeing camel, I point to the cactus. So they were first directed to the wrong one. And so is first from the dominance of the competitor and then to the and in the neutral condition, so when the interpreter was solely dependent on the verbal input, so this ambiguation happens only later when the noun was actually uttered. So a very interesting point lies in the analysis of the pupil data. So as I mentioned earlier, the pupil size is an indicator of the cognitive load, the engagement of the task involvement. When we are comparing the neutral condition and the, so we are comparing of the three conditions, we are comparing the congruent and incongruent, we didn't see any differences. And we also didn't see any difference of the pupil size between congruent and neutral. But when we are comparing incongruent neutral, we see that when the target was uttered, so in the middle of this window, the neutral condition generates a higher pupil size. That means a higher load. And this trend was also found in the window after the target. So that means even if the visual cue is wrong, so in the incongruent conditions, in the conflicting condition, it generates a lower pupil size. That means a lower load. So a wrong cue may produce lower load compared with having nothing visual at all. So the conclusion is that the pointing gestures prioritize the attention. So the congruence facilitates attention. Incongruence causes temporary conflict. So say that was first directed to the wrong one and then corrected to the right one. And neutrality is the most taxing. That means it creates the highest value of the pupil size. And the misleading cues, so narrow the search space. So that's how we interpret it. So even if it is wrong, the entropy is lowered because it is one of the two. So that's why it reduces the load. The load in the conflicting condition is lower than in the no cue condition. So it may inform that the high quality videos, for example, for the remote interpreters or for language producing, or even in the ELSL classrooms, so with the cues or with the high quality audio that is necessary for the learners or for the comprehenders. And in the future, we aim to test in a more naturalistic conditions or in with diverse gesture types like the iconic gesture and something like that. That's all of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So is there any question or comment?
Thank you very much. As I understood, like this effect of misleading cue, you're explaining this effect due to that there was just two stimuli to choose, and so like any gesture would like move our attention to this. But how do you think your results would change if you presented 3 or more pictures, and then you'll have to like this misleading clue, and so the participants would still have to look for the right picture?
Yeah, we actually we saw a study by Marianne Stauter, so in University of Saarland. So originally they didn't use the true cue, but they used the artificial gaze. So a face in the middle. So they have 4 items: up, down, left, right, and they look up, so the face, the eyes. So eye, like the pupil in the middle, it looks to the up, look to the down. And in that case, they also have a target, a competitor, and 2 fillers. So that is also a way for them to test the cognitive load and their attention. Yeah, but in this, when we were designing this experiment, we tried to include 4, but we retained the 2 items that has the highest score after the norming, the highest score of validity in the sense. Yeah, that we'll also do if we have the 4. We have a space of 4 that can also be tested. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A really interesting result that the neutral condition functions as it does. What was special about the interpreters, though? Wouldn't you expect to find the same result if you lined up any 20 speakers and had a conflicting condition where they're being indicated in one direction and being given a linguistic cue in another?
You mean with another group, not interpreters?
Yes, if you took us and put us in that condition.
So we tested the attentional shift features of the 3 tasks. Not with this stimuli, but with another study. We test comprehension, language production. That means I gave them a picture for them to describe with a sentence structure, and then simultaneous interpreting. And we compared the attentional shift pattern between the simultaneous interpreting and the comprehension, pure comprehension within subject design. So we saw that. So the prediction patterns, so that was all relied on the auditory. And the search space of a blank screen paradigm, they were shown the stimuli once, and then when they were producing the critical part of the sentence, they couldn't see anything. And they searched the space for the clue. And we saw that the attention in the simultaneous interpreting, so the prediction pattern was attenuated for simultaneous interpreting task as opposed to for pure comprehension. That's because the load may postpone their search behavior. And then in the later window, we found a agreement of the comprehension and the simultaneous interpreting. But in the earlier windows, we found a predictive pattern in comprehension, but that was absent in simultaneous interpreting. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. It's very interesting. And you use the pictures mentioned about you mentioned about the it's desert as the desert, and it's a camel, and it's a plant, which is particularly typically seen in the desert. And then you use this round target pointing the plant rather than the camel. Could that be something related to the background? Because
Yeah. So
the
we have two targets relating to one context. For example, so in the orchard, the girl picks a ripe apple or a ripe cherry. So all the targets are relating to the same context.
So I was just thinking, if you use totally different object, not as plant, particularly in the desert, and the camel on the desert, would that be different? Have you tested that? Just being curious, because you use the two objects typical found in the desert background. What if you use a different object, which is like in a typical winter, like something you can find in winter, not in the hot environment, that would be unrelated. So just wondering if you have been testing that.
Because we need to control the entropy or the surprisal that's presented to the participants. Yeah, because we want to show that the only surprisal may be incurred by the queue, but the others. So that's why we strictly control that all the is on 4 targets. So all the 4 targets needs to point to the one context. So in order to control the condition.
We need to move on.
Yeah, we are in late. So this wasn't the last presentation. The last one is now, and so we have Longpen Pan who will talk about pointing gestures. That's you. Oh, so I'm sorry. That was you. Yes, you're right. The last presentation, Luen Kao, talking about voice biomarkers.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cao Luwen. I'm from National University of Singapore. In today's talk, I'm going to present the findings of our team. It's a gender-specific acoustic voice of normatives in amnestic mild cognitive impairment. Oh, some disclosure, I think. Find it? Oh, no. I don't know why it's explained, but I can see here. All right, got it. It is funded by the Singapore's Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health, and the manuscript is it's being drafted, and we are going to submit it later on. So for those who are unfamiliar with the clinical term, MCI stands for the mild cognitive impairment. It is intermediate stage. It's beyond normal aging, but it's not dementia yet. And the MCI includes problems with language, and the incidence of MCI developing into a full-fledged dementia is about 20% to 40%, with an increase of 10 to 15% per year. There are 2 subtypes of MCI. One is amnestic, the other is non-amnestic. The difference is the amnestic MCI related to memory, and it carries a high risk of conversion to Alzheimer's disease. The non-amnestic MCI relates to other domains of dementia. There are single and multiple cognitive domains of MCI. So why we studied the change of voice? Because speech contains the motor control and cognitive coordination plus the neural networks. So if any those systems degrade, it could be reflected by the language, especially the voice. So the problems we are facing is current screening relies on slow trained cognitive tests. there's a need for scalable and earlier non-invasive biomarkers. Voice analysis is a promising tool. All right. There are some gaps, sex differences in the Alzheimer's disease prevalence noted, but we don't know if voice biomarkers differ by gender, and should the screen tools be sex specific. So we aim at identifying voice parameters differentiating the two subtypes of MCI versus the healthy controls. And we hope to explore sex-specific vocal abnormalities and calculate power estimates for future validation, especially used by the clinical tools. And the data source is from the Community Health and Intergenerational Study. It is based in Singapore community. We have about 1,000 individuals participate in this study. They're aged between 60 to 80, and they spoke English and Mandarin Chinese. We recorded their unstructured spontaneous speech, the data collected from 2019 to 2021. Participants in this particular study in the voice biomarkers, we have 150 individuals. They spoke English, and we randomly selected 75 healthy controls versus 38 amnestic MCI and 37 non-amnestic MCI subjects. The sex distribution is pretty balanced with 74 males versus 76 females. And participants carried a similar background profiles in terms of age, education, and the languages they spoke. Here is the method we use. We analyzed the acoustics features. We extracted the 27 acoustic parameters, including the categories of jitter, schema, voice quality metric, pitch, and periodicity. And the software we used is Pratt. It is widely used and it is open source. We conducted a statistics analysis. We conducted assumption checks on normality, variance, equality, and group comparisons. And we also conducted a multiple test correction, as well as calculating the effect sizes. The key point here is to focus on identifying voice features that distinguish MCI from normal agent with statistical rigor. And here are the results. We first conducted combined analysis, meaning no gender separation. The results shows 14 parameters differentiating from healthy controls, including 12 parameters differentiating healthy versus amnestic MCI, plus 2 parameters differentiating healthy controls versus non-amnestic MCI. The domains including the categories of jitter, schema, voice quality. The effect size are large, with D is between 0.53 to 0.77. Minimum is 0.53 and the maximum is 0.77. I think I need help with the technical problems here. Yeah, I got stuck here. Shall I click here or what? Thank you. Let's continue. And the combined analysis also showed that non-amnestic MCI has some minimum significant voice changes, including true parameters. Yeah. So only 2 out of 27 parameters significantly differentiated from the healthy control groups. And then we conducted a gender stratified analysis. The results showed quite differently. All right. The key findings include for amnestic MCI group, we have male amnestic MCI including 13 parameters significant, 7 survive brophony, and with large effect size. Everything is consistent, jitter up, schema up, voice quality down. For female amnestic MCI, all 27 parameters showed 0 parameter significant. All effect size is very small, 0.2. And comparing with amnestic MCI, the non-amnestic MCI group shows males with 0 significant parameters and a female with 0 significant parameters as well. And sex stratified analysis revealed no significant non-amnestic MCI related changes. And the summary of the key findings is we can see that for the combined analysis, we have 14 in total significant parameters. But if we do the gender stratification, we'll have 13 for the male parameters and 0 for the females. Then the sex stratified analysis reviewed markers specific to males absent in females despite comparable power. And the combined analysis masks these sex-specific effects, risking misclassification in clinical usage. And gender differences likely reflect underlying biological and neuroanatomical disparity requiring tailored screening models. There's a complete picture showing the combined analysis versus the gender stratified analysis results. It's a visual forest plot visualization. We can see specifically 13 parameters on this side. And here is for all the blue points. For the female is the so certain parameters are significant, male only. 0 are significant for females or both sexes combined. A male effect is large, female effect size of smaller than 0.2. Specific parameters for the details. And the star signs meaning the parameter survived brophony correction. So here's a crucial question. Is this just a power problem? In fact, the results shows no, it's not a statistical power problem. The female amnestic sample, though we have 14, but can detect a large, has a large effect power. And observed female effects are smaller than 0.2. And male versus female contrast with male D equals 0.77 to 1.18 is well above the MDES. And female D is less than 0.2, far below MDES. It's about 10-fold difference in magnitude. And so we conclude the differences unlikely due to the statistical power. And something about non-amnestic MCI. The results shows minimal effect in both sexes. Males feel trans, nothing survived correction, and females nearly 0 effects. Some interpretation is acoustic changes may be specific to amnestic MCI, which is the Alzheimer's disease type. And non-amnestic MCI affects different neural circuits, also limited by the small male non-amnestic samples. And the question is why those are male specific. The short answer is we don't have a definite answer. There could be biological mechanisms, could be possibly some possible explanations is neurological vulnerability because sex differences in brain atrophy patterns. For males, greater motor circuit deterioration maybe, and it could be due to the hormonal neuroprotection or anatomical biomechanism. But in fact, we don't know which. Probably it's multifactorial. Here are the clinical implications. The voice screening must be sex-specific. For males, we have anything. We have a higher effect. So we have acoustic highly effective with D is above 1.0. Simple voice recordings could enable amnestic MCI screening, or we can do it via our smartphone apps or phone calls or telehealth, all feasible. But for females, acoustic features do not work well. Alternative approaches would be needed, such as other linguistic features or multimodal combinations. One bottom line is one-size-fits-all screening algorithms will fail. We are transparent about our strengths and limitations. We're the first sex-stratified acoustic analysis for the MCI subtypes, and we have comprehensive parameters, gender stratification, and it's largely consistent effect sizes. Some limitations, we have small female amnestic MCI samples and adequate only for large effects only. And we have conducted a cross-sectional study and cannot establish causality. And it's single site because we have conducted this study only in Singapore. So I have questions about the generalizability. The first thing is we require validation in independent cohorts. So what will be the next directions? Some validation study, independent cohort, larger female samples, target the number must be at least 50, and diverse populations, ethnicity, languages, or geography. Linguistic acoustic integration, we have published a paper related to the amnestic study last year, but in that work, we didn't stratify the gender. That could be some potential further exploration. And another one would be the comprehensive multimodal analysis, combining the lexical or phonological or syntactical analysis into this voice study, and to identify optimal feature combinations by gender. A longitudinal study would be very beneficial because track voice changes over time, probably could predict who are converting from MCI into Alzheimer's disease. Could that the gender plays a role in the future? So validation comes first. Some take-home messages. Amnestic MCI voice abnormalities are significant and a large effect size. Main findings include voice changes are male-specific. Screening requires sex-specific approaches, so validation is crucial. I would like to thank my team at NUS Medicine and the participants in the CHI study, the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health. So we are preparing for the manuscript, and here is a QR code for our research paper. It's quite related to what we do on the voice biomarkers. It is published last year in the Journal of Alzheimer's and Dementia. It's about the concreteness reversal effect, and focusing on the lexical side of the amnestic MCI's language, the speech patterns. And I can be contacted by my email, so feel free to reach out if you want to discuss further about this topic. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any question or comment?
Thank you. That was very interesting. And The question I have is, well, male and female voices are different anyways. And I was wondering whether you could track down what might be behind this difference between the two groups you're tested by looking at females that have more male-like voices or males that have more female-like voices. Would that help you decide whether it's the type of voice that you're measuring or whether it's something else that explains your results?
Interesting question. Actually, our focus is on the Asian group, especially people aged above 60. We wanted to find out the voice biomarkers of those people who are diagnosed with the MCI disease, and comparing those speech patterns with the speech patterns of the healthy people. But I think that's a very good suggestion to include those people, and we kind of reorganizing the participants into different groups.
Thank you. Any other question or comment or tea time, coffee time?
Coffee time is great.
Okay, thank you very much.